8 years ago, my world came crashing down. I, 45 male, was married to Emma, now 43 female, and we'd been together for over 17 years. Our life seemed normal. We had a beautiful daughter, Lily, then 15 female, now 23 female, and I thought we were happy. I never imagined that the two people I trusted most in the world would betray me. My best friend, Dan, now 46 male, and I had been inseparable since childhood. We grew up together, went to the same college, and even worked at the same company for a while. Dan wasn't just my friend, he was family. He was the guy I called when life got hard, the one who stood by me at my wedding, and the godfather to my daughter. I trusted him implicitly. That trust was shattered one fateful afternoon. I came home early from work, something I rarely did. Emma wasn't expecting me, and her phone was on the kitchen counter, buzzing repeatedly with messages. Out of curiosity, I glanced at the screen. It was Dan's name, and one message in particular caught my eye. "I can't stop thinking about last night," heart emoji. At first, I thought it must have been some kind of joke, a misunderstanding. But as I opened the thread, my hands shaking, the truth became painfully clear. The messages were explicit, and it was obvious this wasn't a one-time fling. They'd been sneaking around behind my back for months, if not longer. I confronted Emma immediately. Her face went pale, and she didn't even try to deny it. Through tears, she admitted everything. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, "but I've fallen out of love with you and into love with Dan." Hearing those words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. This wasn't just a betrayal by my wife. It was a betrayal by the man I considered my brother. The two people I trusted most had been plotting behind my back. That night, I packed a bag and left. The next day, I filed for divorce. The divorce was messy, as divorces often are, but the hardest part by far was Lily. I adored my daughter and tried to shield her from the ugliness of what was happening. I didn't want her to hate her mother, even if Emma had destroyed our marriage. But Emma and Dan wasted no time presenting themselves as a new happy family. By the time the divorce was finalized, Dan had moved in with Emma, and Lily was living with them full-time. I hoped Lily would split her time between her mother's house and mine. I set up a room for her in my new apartment, filled it with her favorite things, and tried to make it feel like home. But to my heartbreak, Lily didn't seem interested. She chose to stay with Emma and Dan full-time, saying she didn't want to disrupt her routine. At first, I tried to stay positive. I figured she was just a teenager who needed stability, and I tried to make the most of our weekends together. But as time went on, Lily became more distant. She started canceling plans, saying she was busy or not feeling well. I saw on social media that she was going on vacations with Emma and Dan, posting pictures of them laughing and smiling as if I didn't exist. I tried harder. I attended her school events, sent her messages asking how she was doing, and invited her to spend holidays with me. But the responses were always lukewarm at best, and eventually, the calls and texts stopped altogether. It felt like I was losing her piece by piece. 2 years ago, I was scrolling through Facebook when I stumbled across something that made my heart drop. Lily had gotten married, and I hadn't been invited. Worse, Dan was the one who walked her down the aisle. Seeing the pictures of him in a suit, smiling proudly beside my daughter, shattered me. The captions read, "The best day of my life with the people I love most." I can't put into words how much that hurt. I had spent years trying to be part of Lily's life, only to be replaced by the man who ruined my marriage. That day, I decided I couldn't keep putting myself through the pain. I went no contact with Lily. If she didn't want me in her life, I wasn't going to force myself to be there. After the divorce, I eventually remarried. My wife, Sophia, 39 female, has been a blessing in my life. She has a daughter, Mia, 19 female, from a previous relationship. Mia's father abandoned her and Sophie when Mia was just a baby, so it had been just the two of them for years. When I entered their lives, I wasn't trying to replace Mia's father, but we formed a close bond over time. Mia was kind, respectful, and hardworking, and she started calling me Dad a couple of years into my marriage with Sophia. It meant everything to me. Mia had a tough upbringing. She and Sophia struggled financially for most of Mia's childhood, so when Mia turned 18 and was accepted into a good university, I wanted to help her because she worked so hard to get there. I had been saving a college fund for Lily for years, but after going no contact, I realized Lily wouldn't expect the money. I used most of the fund to buy Mia a modest house near her college campus so she wouldn't have to worry about rent while studying. It felt like the right move to do. Mia treated me with love and respect, and I wanted to support her dreams. Last week, out of nowhere, Lily showed up at my doorstep. I hadn't seen or heard from her in over 2 years, so I was stunned to see her standing there. She looked angry and went straight to the point. "I need the college fund money you saved for me." I was taken aback. "Lily, that money is gone," I said gently. "I used it to help Mia buy a house." Her face turned red. "You gave my money to your stepdaughter?" she shouted. "How could you do that? She's not even your real daughter." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Lily, I saved that money for you because I loved you and wanted to support you. But you made it clear you didn't want me in your life. You chose to live with your mother and Dan, and you let him take my place at your wedding. That hurt me more than I can say, but I had to move on. Mia's been a blessing in my life after what you did to me, and I wanted to help her." Lily wasn't having it. "You abandoned me," she yelled. "You chose her over me." I shook my head. "No, Lily. You chose to cut me out of your life. I tried for years to be there for you, and you pushed me away. I had to focus on the people who actually wanted me in their lives." The argument went in circles, with Lily accusing me of being a terrible father, and me trying to explain my perspective. Eventually, I told her the conversation wasn't going anywhere, and asked her to leave. She stormed off, saying I'd regret my decision. Since that day, I've received a flood of messages from family members. Some say I should have saved the money for Lily, no matter what. Others accuse me of being petty and vindictive. Emma even chimed in, accusing me of abandoning Lily. But here's the thing. I spent years trying to be a part of Lily's life. She made her choice to side with her mother and Dan, and I made my peace with that. I didn't spend that money out of spite. I spent it on someone who loves and values me as a father. Now Lily is back, acting like I owe her something after years of silence and rejection. Am I really the bad guy for refusing to give her the money? I feel torn. Lily is my biological daughter, and part of me wonders if I should have saved the money just in case. But on the other hand, she made her choices, and I have a right to move on with my life. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your daughter made her choices, and now she's facing the consequences. You spent years trying to be a part of her life, but she chose to side with your ex-wife and the man who betrayed you. She even went so far as to let him walk her down the aisle. That must have been devastating for you. You're not a bank account she can come back to whenever it's convenient for her. You're a person with feelings, and you have every right to prioritize someone who has shown you love and respect, like Mia. Don't let her guilt trip you into thinking otherwise. Let me get this straight. She cuts you out of her life, lets your ex-best friend play the role of her father, and only comes back when she needs money? That's rich. She didn't just choose her mother and Dan. She actively participated in excluding you from major milestones in her life. You've done nothing wrong by investing in Mia, who actually values you and treats you like a parent. Not the a-hole. Stay strong. Honestly, the entitlement here is staggering. Lily had no problem replacing you with Dan when it suited her. But now she's demanding money because suddenly you're her dad again? Absolutely not. You've been through enough heartbreak, and you don't owe her anything. You used the money to help Mia because she's part of the family you've built. A family that actually appreciates you. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your daughter made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. It's incredibly unfair for her to come back after years of no contact and expect you to provide for her when she hasn't treated you like a father in years. Mia, on the other hand, has shown you love and loyalty, and it's perfectly reasonable that you chose to help her instead. Lily's anger says more about her entitlement than anything else. You're not a bad father. You're just protecting your peace. I had a casual relationship with this woman for 1.5 years. We used to work together, so we didn't initiate anything. After she left, we strictly established a purely S relationship. We both set the boundaries and were clear-cut from the beginning. Near the end of the relationship, I didn't like what it was turning into, so I was the one to break it off. Needless to say, it was a messy break-off. Relationship started when I was 21 and ended by the time I was 23. I'm 28 now. A couple months go by, and she says she's pregnant with my child. Long story short, she fed a story to her parents on how we were dating for 3 years and that I was ashamed to be seen with her, and that I was neglecting my responsibility to my child. I do some digging and found another man and asked him how he knows this woman. The details he told me line up with the time I broke it off with her. He ended up sleeping with her 3 months after our relationship was done. Eventually, the other man gets tested and comes back he's not the father. Due to the circumstances at the time, I accepted the fact that this was my child. I know I was stupid and deserve all the crap that is given to me. Ultimately, I ended up paying a collective of $9,000 USD for child support. After some time, I found out that there was a third man involved, and after a long process and arguing back and forth with this woman, he gets tested and he is indeed the father. After I found out, I did some research, and there was no guarantee I would get my money. However, I still got a lawyer just to be sure. He ultimately petitioned the court to stop the child support. However, he found a way to get my money back. At this point, we complete the steps necessary to file a claim against my old friend with benefits. Word gets out of what I'm doing, and her friends and family are trying to talk me out of it, saying that I'm an a-hole for suing a struggling mother, and that I'm just neglecting being a father. If this was my child, I would without a doubt do everything needed to raise them. However, I feel used and don't have an obligation to help the mother. I'm just looking for perspective. Am I in the wrong for taking countermeasures against my old friend with benefits? She committed fraud and you are seeking restitution. That is all. Absolutely not wrong. What she did was heinous and there should be consequences, which there aren't even. You are just getting your money back. Anyone that tells you otherwise, tell them they are free to give her $10,000 since they are just as related to the kid as you are. I can't believe how dumb people are sometimes. Sorry you have to deal with this. My husband used to be in a 3-year relationship with a not-so-nice lady. They broke up and she was ordered to move at least 2 kilometers away from him due to her behaviors. When we got together and he opened up with me, I actually encouraged him to go to therapy. He had been to court-mandated sessions to deal with stuff, but did not follow up, so it was needed. He got help, got an amazing job. We moved in together, got married, the whole stuff. His family has been nothing but amazing to me, and his mom and I have a very nice relationship. She makes me feel less homesick on special dates. I am an immigrant. The issue started some weeks ago. He received a letter asking for child support payments for his ex's kid. He showed me the letter, and I recommended he talk to his friends. The thing is, while my husband is not a lawyer, he hangs out with a lot of them, and they are pretty incredible at what they do. His social circle is basically composed of lawyers, IT, and marketing people, which, back in the day, was not. Important later. They advised a paternity test, of course, but also wrote a certified letter stating that if the kid is his, not in the birth certificate, didn't know the kid existed, he would like to get to know the child, visitation, and eventual custody. The letter also stated that he was willing to pay back child support and give the kid his last name if allowed by the mother. But due to the issue between him and the mother, my husband had a right to not see her, ex, ever, since he is, after all, a victim. They also demanded to know why he was not informed of the kid and the reasoning about why the request for child support was done now and not before. I thought it was a very standard letter. I support my husband 100%, and my dad even offered to pay the legal fees, but his friends said they would of course not charge him more than a couple of beers. Paternity test is positive. The issue comes now since the ex thought my husband would just have a panic attack, which he did, after getting the news, and pay her whatever she demanded or claimed. She did not expect him to have legal representation, want to claim the kid, etc. She expected him to cave in, do not want to claim the kid, and just give her money since he would be scared. The ex got in contact with my in-laws, told them that if my husband kept this up, they will never see the kid. My mother-in-law is begging me to take off my husband's support. She thinks I am financing it, because she so desperately wants a grandchild. She even asked me to convince my husband to request the protections off, so his ex can move back close to him. I, for the first time in 5 years, told her to go to ducking hell. She keeps saying I am encouraging the problem, am heartless, selfish, and I do not understand, cause I do not have any kids. My dad supports us, but my mom and brother are unsure about my position. So you need to point out to the mother-in-law that by supporting the two of you and your struggle, she will actually have a chance to see the child. The ex was the one hoping he would just pay and not want to be part of the kid's life. But if she's going to just fight you two, then cut her out for now. It's hard enough what you're doing right now and are about to go through. Not in a bad way. If it's what you want, then this kid will be amazing in all the ways you expect, and in so many ways you'll never even think of. Your mother-in-law is having the panic attack the ex thought your husband would have. The legal way is the best way. It is then clear for everyone what the roles and responsibilities are. Mother-in-law will not miss out on the child unless the ex steals him away. Long story short, I married a man who turned out to be a psychopath. No empathy, extremely emotionally gaslit and emotionally crushed me daily until I was almost dead. He used taking my family's home as a way of forcing me to stay in the relationship. I faced death several times near the end of it and afterwards. It took 2 years after I divorced him to recover my physical health and the stress, with numerous visits to the ER and 40+ doctor's visits, infections, etc. I still suffer from constant anxiety and insomnia after surviving it. During the separation, I confided in my family about the I was clear and upfront about what was happening. My dad decided to do things that made it more difficult for me to successfully save my home and get rid of my ex, even though I explicitly asked him not to do those things before he did them. My dad disbelieved the and threw tantrums at my home, trying to make me say the A was a made-up story. He's done other things since to actively sabotage my recovery, like withdrawing finances, dissuading contractors from helping me finish my home, calling me a joke, etc. My mother was MIA throughout. More on that in a sec. My brother-in-law and sister have a business that is the sole supplier to my ex-husband's business. My ex relies on that business as his only means of income. Without being supplied by them, he would have to fold. We're well known in our town and hold sway over the locals, especially next to outsiders. It's closed here unless you know someone who will vouch for you. And my ex is a grifter with no ties here. He's a parasite. Without the support of my family, he'd have to go home. He's also a predator looking for vulnerable people to exploit. And once he'd moved here, he realized he'd hit the jackpot. A small town with trusting folks, many elderly, widows, etc., that he could take advantage of as his clients. My brother-in-law and sister could have prevented that. When my separation happened, my brother-in-law and sister disbelieved that I had been demanded that I prove it, encouraged me to stay with him, doubled down on supplying my ex's business, and continued to be social with him. I want to note the amount of business my ex was bringing to my family's business was negligible, so finances were a non-factor in the decision. Had they been loyal to me and stood behind me, stopped supplying him, etc., there's a 90% chance my ex would have gone back to his hometown. Thankfully, 3 hours from here. They didn't do that. They took extra steps to make sure he remained close by and continued to be a lethal threat to me and a threat to vulnerable locals. When all this happened, I cut ties with my family, obviously. I've been no contact with them for the past 4 years. I developed a new set of family and friends, pulled myself out of the isolation, changed careers, finished my house, healed. I've never felt happier or healthier. A little on how we got there. My mother has narcissistic personality disorder. My dad is her victim, enabler, and he's developed his own habits over the years. My childhood was extremely with my mother at the helm. That's why I ended up marrying a predator and not seeing the signs. In my family, I was the scapegoat and my sister was the golden child. My mother in this equation is probably enjoying this and pleased I'm no longer part of the family. So we'll leave her out of this. Here's my question. In the first 2 years of no contact, my family thought it was a big joke. They didn't take it seriously, made me out as a joke to people in my community, etc. They were in denial and repeatedly ignored my requests to stop dropping in unannounced. They acted like this wasn't happening and everything was normal. Then my sister had her first child. I wasn't there for it, and things started to sink in a little bit. They finally stopped trampling my boundaries, no contact, stopped dropping by unannounced, and my sister finally started taking a tone that might loosely be recognized as atonement. None of what she said has resembled a meaningful apology, or empathy for me, or what she did, but truthfully, I think that may be a stretch for a narcissistic family. She has actually typed the words, "I'm sorry" in an email, So there's that. My dad, last week, did the first thing ever that was 1. Kind, 2. Considerate, 3. No strings attached, 4. Guilt tantrum free. That's a big deal, and I wonder if he might be starting to get it. He's the only one that has painfully tried to keep connected and made efforts these past 4 years, though he is undeniably a toxic person. They all clearly want me back in their lives. Where do I go from here? Take some time to observe if they have actually changed because they want to improve things with you, or if it's just a facade. You've been through a lot. You deserve peace. Honestly, I wouldn't let them back into my life if I were you. The things they have done to you are simply unforgivable, and how could you possibly trust them again? They are awful, awful people, and life is too short to have that kind of people in your life. My first thought was that they wanted you back because they either need something from you, your parents needing help as they get older, or that other people must realize that your family did something truly horrible to you for you to cut off contact with them for so long. And if you come back to the family, people will stop talking. Hello, I'm new here, but have a moral dilemma question and cannot work out who is right. I have been married to my husband for 19 years and together 26. But we started off as an illicit affair all those years ago, and it was ugly. Now, all these years later, our children from our first marriages are grown up, married, kids, jobs, houses, etc., and all fine. But to this day, I am never ever allowed to be in the same room as his children or grandchildren. They hate me, and I am blamed entirely for the affair, even though in truth it was actually more the other way around. But all that is lost in history. I am perceived as the monster, scapegoat, whatever. We share a holiday caravan which we renovated together and is very special to us and was always the only marital space, really. My family are absolutely fine with him now, despite their anger at him years ago. They've moved on and are nice to him as he's my husband. But it's not the other way around. I am utterly excluded from absolutely everything, not even my name on a wedding invite, etc. But I would never ever have wanted to go to these events in the circumstances. But here's where I am drawing the line and need to ask if I am being unreasonable. His adult children and their spouses and their children all go to our holiday home, and when they do, I am not allowed to be there. In fact, if they are planning to go and I am there already, I have to leave. I have tried to get my husband to change this over the years, but he refuses, saying it's totally reasonable and I should understand and respect their hatred of me. Yet he has never stood up for me and shared responsibility for our relationship, even given it was him who pursued it so obsessively and begged me to marry him, etc. I have decided that enough is enough, and I won't be treated like this for the rest of my life. I am almost 60, and actually a nice benign person, a bit weak to be honest, and cannot seem to stand up for myself. He is utterly furious with me now and threatening divorce, and that he'll take the caravan away from me totally, etc. As if he's far more protective of his children's hatred for me than our relationship or my sense of dignity. I feel that he is completely wrong about this, but I am asking here if I am perhaps off the mark. Is he reasonable? Are the children reasonable? If they hate me so much still and want to hold on to that, couldn't they go to a different holiday venue? Help. They don't need to move on. They don't need to get over it. They never have to. It's been 26 years, but some people aren't forgiven, and this is one of those times. Pretty much the stepkids are irrelevant here, because it comes down to your husband tolerating and condoning this, choosing to use you as a scapegoat to keep his children in his life. The worst part is you let him. You accepted this role and didn't stand up for yourself, and your husband knew you wouldn't because you admit you're a bit weak, and he totally, absolutely took advantage of that. I'll be the one to say it. Not wanting you at their personal family events is acceptable. That's sometimes the cross you bear when you conduct an affair. Yeah, your family accepted him because their mom didn't get cheated on. Come on, use common sense there. It's entirely different for them. But the catch here is the fact that you're not allowed to stay in your holiday home that you've contributed to. That is a hard no from me. It's fine if they want to use it when you aren't there. But for you to leave when you are there, just to make sure they can come? No. They can wait their turn, or at least plan arrangements ahead of schedule. You shouldn't get kicked out of your house when your husband's kids decide they want to chill there. No. I am not saying you are a horrible person. I am not saying you deserve this treatment from your husband. But what did you expect? He cheated on their mom with you, and you stayed after he showed he would not prioritize you over his kids. Yeah, your husband might have pursued you, but you entertained it and participated in it. Own your stuff. Kids coming first is reasonable to an extent, and I can't say this arrangement is wholly off because they don't like you, have never liked you, and you don't like them. He is their dad. Many people want relationships with their parents, and this is the narrative they spun when you weren't responsible for this, at least not completely. I'd draw the line at the holiday home and call them maybe bluff about divorce because your husband doesn't sound like he respects you. He's never respected you in the 26 years you've been married. Why do you think he stayed?